Setouchi Onsen utilizes binary geothermal power generation for various tourism resources. We welcome guests from overseas, so please come and visit Fukushima.
There are many people abroad who are interested in Japanese manga culture. The COVID-19 pandemic has subsided, and many foreign visitors are coming to the museum.
Nagasaki is now a destination for foreign visitors. We are very happy that the ambassadors from various countries enjoy their visit to Nagasaki.
Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the short tourism introductory video. My name is Yuko Kaifu. I'm the president of Japan House Los Angeles, and I wish to welcome you all to today's program. Today's webinar is related to our exhibition, Symbiosis, Living Island, which is on view at our gallery from April the 15th to July the 5th. Before we begin our program today, I'd like to briefly talk about this exhibition. The word symbiosis may not be familiar to many of us, but it refers to two organisms living together, typically to the advantage of both. Socially, the term is used for a mutually beneficial relationship between people or groups. This exhibition features a small, depopulated island of Inujima in Seto Inland Sea off the coast of Okayama Prefecture. The island is so small that you can walk around the entire island in an hour. There are only about 25 households, and more than half of the residents are older than 70 years of age. The project called Art House Project was started in 2008 to transform and revitalize the island as part of the Benesse Art Site Naoshima, conducted by Benesse Holdings Inc. and the Fukutake Foundation, to create an environment where art, community, and ecology are harmoniously intertwined. It's the concept of symbiosis. At our exhibition, we present an immersive diorama of the island, including architectural models of the art pavilions, botanical gardens, Hopi Bar, and other amenities for the visitors, as well as documentary videos and testimonies from residents about the project's transformative impact on the lives. The admission is free, and it's fun to walk around the exhibition, so I hope that you'll be able to visit if you haven't still. The theme of today's webinar is the Seto Inland Sea as a destination for arts and nature. We're excited to co-host the program with Japan National Tourism Organization, and we will introduce various tourist attractions that the area offers. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Rose Lifschitz. She's the marketing coordinator at JNTO's Los Angeles office with nearly 10 years of experience living and working in Japan. She moved to Japan in 2013 and lived there until 2022. During her time in Japan, she worked at local schools and government, as well as in the travel industry. After returning to the US in 2022, she joined JNTO and is continuing to promote Japan's tourism. She will talk about what to do in the area and other tourist destinations in Japan and share some of the valuable travel tips. It's exciting, isn't it? Now, I'd like to invite Ms. Rose Lifschitz to the screen. Rose, the screen is yours. Please take it away.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate you taking the time to join today's webinar. So thank you so much for that introduction. So my name is Rose Lifschitz, and I'm the marketing coordinator at JNTO's LA office, just downtown. So today I'll be introducing you to Japan as a travel destination, but I am going to be specifically honing in on the coastal area of Setouchi and all of the really beautiful destinations within. But to start off, we'll just go with a really great update. So many of you might be aware, but as of last month, all COVID restrictions have been lifted for entry into Japan, so you no longer have to provide proof of vaccination or a negative PCR for entry. So we have seen a huge influx of tourism as well since Japan has opened up. And in March alone, we had over 200,000 visitors from the US alone. So we've broken through the recovery rate from 4 years ago. So it's safe to say that Japan is absolutely booming with visitors. We're really recovering. We expect this trend to continue, and we're so happy to invite everybody back. Now, pre-COVID, 19 major airports in the US serviced direct nonstop flights to Japan. And since the reopening, we are seeing these departure points slowly return. So these direct flights don't just connect to places like Narita or Haneda, which will bring you adjacent to Tokyo, but other airports in the Western regions like Kansai International, which is much closer to hotspot destinations like Osaka and Kyoto. So you do get that ease of access when traversing those Western regions. Now, as everyone here is probably well aware, Japan is a renowned travel destination, and part of its widespread appeal stems from being able to experience that rich culture alongside that sort of glitz and glamour of a modern metropolis. So there has been a pretty marked shift in recent years for what travelers consider to be luxurious. So it's not necessarily just a matter of material goods, but more of those intangible, salt of the earth experiences that feel really exclusive and authentic. So the joy of a destination like Japan that blends the old with the new so seamlessly is you don't have to give up those creature comforts while also feeling like you're getting that really great immersive experience. So one handy phrase to encapsulate this that you may encounter in Japan is gokan de kanjiru. So this means fully experiencing something with all 5 of your senses so that you can really appreciate it to the fullest. Now, most first or second time visitors to Japan have probably encountered some of those larger cities with the lively crowds, the buzzing nightlife, places like Tokyo, Osaka, larger port cities. So these are really prime destinations for people who are dipping their feet into Japan for the first time. So they get access to those modern amenities while dotting the itinerary with little traditional experiences here and there. And also these larger cities are great for repeat visits. There's a lot to take in and a lot to do. So no matter how many times you visit, you never really feel like you've fully explored them. So yeah, really great for repeat visits. But at the same time, if you visit the idyllic countryside, you really do get this different side of Japan. So getting to the country is really easy and accessible from those metropolitan hubs. And this is where you get to see more of that symbiotic relationship that Japan has with its surroundings. So you get these beautifully preserved landscapes, traditional architecture, and historical sites to enjoy. And a lot of what draws people to these off the beaten track destinations is the opportunity to really feel like you're immersed in that authenticity, whether you're hiking through mountains or old trade routes, soaking in hot springs, or cycling or strolling through lanes of rice fields and cherry blossoms. Now, most people who visit Japan take what's called the golden route for their first time. So we do often recommend this. Because it gives a nice snapshot of Japan. It hits a lot of those destinations that first timers really want to see. You get the big city in Tokyo, you get some great nature in Mount Fuji Hakone, you get tradition in Kyoto, and some really great food in Osaka. However, for today, I'd like to focus a little more on a lesser traversed region, so this area right over here. So if you go to the Midwest of Japan, you'll hit what's known as the Setouchi region. So that inland sea that you see there is basically what connects this area. It's comprised of all those coastal prefectures. And you can see it's possible to access it via bullet train, the Kansai International Airport. You can see there's smaller domestic airports for domestic airlift. And this area is just really, really special. It's home to thousands of small islands, really unique culture, some really incredible food, stunning art, and so much more. So I'll introduce it really briefly here. So if you are particularly enthusiastic about Japanese architecture, you'll find this area has a really great catalog of Shinto shrines, Buddhist temples, and Japanese castles. So many castles in Japan have occasional refurbishment. Others have had to be reconstructed from the ground up, and only a dozen of them have survived over hundreds of years with their main keeps intact. So these castles in particular are known as national treasures. They have a special designated status, and the Setouchi area has 5 of these castles in and of itself. So it's a really great region to explore for those who are interested in history as well as tradition. Now, as a coastal-centric area, as you can imagine, you have access to some really great beaches, but you'll also find plenty of inland forestry, cycling routes, rivers, hiking trails. And the weather in this region leans towards sunny and warm, so this is a great place to consider for adventure travel. Now, even if you are sticking to the city centers, you can still enjoy nature in places like Japanese landscape gardens and parks with seasonal blooms. And of course, we can't forget about food. So Setouchi is in a really sweet spot geographically. So it's got access to the sea as well as land and mountains with warm conditions that make it perfect for agriculture. So you have access to quality meat, seafood, fruit, veggies, dairy, sugar, and more. So this is a great hotspot for gastrotourism. And also, given that Setouchi has that milder climate and a bit more sun compared to the rest of Japan, and because it lends itself well to agriculture, it's particularly famous for its fruit cultivation. So depending on the season, you can enjoy visiting orchards, trying fresh local produce as it comes into season, and even picking your own fruit during the harvest season. And also in general, you'll find that going out to eat in Japan is not quite the massive expense that people envision. It's honestly a fraction of what you might pay for in the States, but without sacrificing quality. And right now it's about 130 yen to the dollar. So you're getting about a 30% increase compared to the usual exchange rate. So really getting your bang for your buck there. Now, many people who visit Japan in the summer usually manage to catch a summer festival. So this is where you can, don a traditional yukata, enjoy that incredible stall food like takoyaki and yakisoba, and watch some fireworks. And Setouchi in particular has a few really great summer festivals. One of my favorites was the Fukuyama Summer Festival, which has a 75-minute long fireworks display. You can see the Awa Odori dance in Tokushima or the Momotaro Festival in Okayama. But even if you don't make it into the summer, you can find a lot of local seasonal festivals as well, like the Matsuyama Spring Festival, the Winter Hadaka Matsuri, and so much more. And of course, Setouchi is also considered a hotspot for art lovers with its thriving local art scene. So you can visit well-established museums with 19th and 20th century European art, as well as galleries with traditional Japanese ukiyo-e. There are lots of these quirky niche museums for local crafts like denim and glass, and even art islands that have exhibitions incorporated into the natural landscape. So I'll get into those in more detail in just a bit. But a must-see event for contemporary art fans is the Setouchi Triennale, which is a community festival every 3 years that showcases works from both Japanese and international artists, and it actually spans across a dozen islands. So I'll get into that again in just a bit. Now, for those who are less interested in viewing art, more making their own, you can get some really great hands-on craft experiences in this area, ranging from ceramics to lacquerware to food. Some museums will even offer workshops in-house. So you can make your own pottery, have it shipped back to you, make traditional washi paper or some wagashi sweets, learn about woodworking, enroll in bonsai workshops. Pretty much no matter where you go, there's an opportunity to get your hands dirty. Now, I'm also personally of the opinion that these are some of the best experiences when it comes to souvenirs. So you're making them yourself, but it's under the watchful eye of artisans to ensure that it's good, while you still have that personal touch. So these make for great mementos for your time in Japan, as well as souvenirs for family and friends. Now, some might not think it's possible to hit up this area during their travels, especially first-timers, but not only is it possible, but you don't even have to sacrifice those bigger itinerary stops like Tokyo and Kyoto to visit. So to give you an idea of a way to explore it, I'll run through a very quick sample itinerary that would be suitable for maybe 7 to 10 days minimum. So this would be comparable to sort of alternative golden route. So you get to hit up those major metropolitan areas on your way in and out of Japan, like Kyoto and Tokyo, but you get rerouted through the Setouchi region as opposed to the standard route, so you get to explore some of those destinations. So with this itinerary, you'd fly into Kansai International direct from LAX, head west to get a taste of some of those prefectures and islands, and then fly back domestic to Tokyo for a bit of the big city before heading home. So the route starts in Kyoto. So to get here from Kansai International, really easy. You can get the JR Haruka Limited Express, or you can get a limousine bus. This typically takes about an hour, hour and a half, so it's a pretty painless transfer. So Kyoto is one of the most visited destinations in Japan. It's considered one of the big cities for tradition. It was the capital for over 1,000 years, and it's home to about 2,000 temples and shrines, as well as 17 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in and around the city. So this is a really great destination to sort of kick off your adventures, get that sort of quintessential feel for Japanese culture before you get to head to some of those more niche destinations. So Kyoto is famed for its long history of geisha. So this is a really great destination for an ozashiki experience. So this is where you get to typically enjoy a traditional meal while a geiko, which is a fully fledged geisha, will pour your drinks, make light conversation, entertain you with song and dance. And it takes many years of training for these women to become proficient in these arts. So having a private encounter like that is really a once in a lifetime experience. But if you just want to catch a glimpse of the Geiko and Maiko, you can see them wandering the old geisha district in Kyoto, the Gion district. And while in town, you can get professionally fitted in a kimono yourself, stroll around, enjoy the general ambiance, maybe join in on a tea ceremony, learn how to prepare a cup of matcha green tea. Now, while you're in town, you have to visit some of the temples and shrines, and there are a lot to choose from. Most people try to make a trip to the Fushimi Inari Taisha shrine, which has those beautiful red torii gates that you walk through, as well as Kiyomizu Temple, which has that stage that sort of juts out overlooking that scenery there. Now, Kyoto is also one of the destinations we typically recommend you try staying in a ryokan, or a traditional Japanese inn. So you really do get to relax in style on those tatami floors, sleep in futons, and typically this also provides you access to hot springs so you can soak in those mineral waters and really unwind from your travels. Now, if you do want a unique option for accommodations, you can also try shukubo. So this is temple lodging where you stay overnight at a Buddhist temple. So you can enjoy activities like zazen meditation, chat with the head priest, and also get a taste of Buddhist cuisine. So this is a great option for vegans and vegetarians, as Buddhist cuisine, or shojin ryori, uses no animal products. Now, if you do want to get out into nature a little bit, there are a few different ways you can do that. So in the summer, you can enjoy activities like kawadoko river dining. So this is where riverside restaurants will erect these platforms over the river. So it's sort of a cooler dining experience. Or you can head up to Arashiyama to enjoy those beautiful Sagano bamboo forests. Or if you're willing to go out a little further, you can visit Ine Funaya. So this is a fishing village where you can cruise the waters, learn about the boat houses there, try fishing yourself, or just relax with some local sake and enjoy the view. So from Kyoto, you can hop on the Shinkansen bullet train for about an hour and a half, and then you'll reach Okayama. So this area is colloquially called Sunny Country. So it's famous for its really great weather and really great food. So it's also the origin for the legend of Momotaro. I won't get into it. It's an old local Japanese folktale about a boy born from a peach. But I mention it because you can really see the area pay homage to it with their local cuisine and traditions, whether through the food, art scene, or the festivals. And also, I have to say this is a prefecture that's very dear to my heart. I lived there myself for nearly 5 years. And still, it just feels like home to me. So I'll highlight a few of the must-see spots here. So you can't go to Okayama without a visit to Okayama Castle. So this is about a 10-minute tram ride away from the station, really easily accessible. You can spot it from afar with that distinctive dark thatched roof and exterior. So it's got the nickname of Crow Castle. So it was fully reconstructed about 60 years ago. So the interior is modern. It's got air conditioning and elevators, but it's got displays documenting the castle's history. So you can stroll around, enjoy the displays. And then afterwards, you can actually take a ceramics class in the castle or have some local sweets. And depending on the season, you can also maybe catch a light up of the castle in the evening. Now for a scenic view, I often recommend hitching a ride on a pedal boat like you can see in the top left there, where you can get a view of the back of the castle from the Asahigawa River. And this river is one of the city's main cherry blossom viewing spots. So if you do come in the spring, this is a really great place for a picnic. Now, after exploring the castle, just next door is Korakuen Garden. So this is actually ranked as one of the top 3 gardens in Japan. It's got streams, walking paths, groves of seasonal trees, tea and rice fields. They even have a crane aviary. And you'll find that when the weather's nice, engaged couples will have their wedding photo shoots here. So if you go when the weather's good, you might see a couple dressed up in beautiful traditional kimono. So depending on when you visit, you can also enjoy some seasonal activities like picking your own tea leaves in the summer or viewing events like rice planting, grass burning, and more. And I actually lived about a 10-minute bike ride away from Korakuen, so I was a pretty frequent visitor. And I can tell you firsthand, there was nothing quite so calming to me as sitting in one of those tea houses on the grounds, enjoying a cup of tea and sweets in the late afternoon, especially in the autumn. The fall colors are really incredible. I made very good use of my annual pass. So about a 20-minute train ride from Okayama City is the city of Kurashiki. So this area features the Bikanchiku historical quarter, and this is one of the biggest draws for visitors to Okayama. So you'll know when you find it because you kind of see the city transition from the usual cityscape to these really gorgeous whitewashed buildings, stone bridges, and a canal that's lined with cherry trees. And this is a preserved district. So a lot of the buildings themselves are quite old, but they have been converted into charming stores, sweet shops, restaurants, places to buy souvenirs. So this is a really great area to get dressed in kimono if you didn't get to do it in Kyoto. Walk around, you'll find some really great foodie spots here. I love the seasonal fruit parfaits here, as well as baked goods, traditional sweets, and you can even stay at a ryokan here overnight. So you can really take your time strolling the area, enjoying the canals when they're lit up in the evening. And this is one of the first places I ever visited in Japan. So it does remain one of my favorite spots to this day. Now, the area also does have its own little niche art scene. So it's host to the Ohara Art Museum. This is the first museum of Western art in Japan. But just outside on the weekends, you can find artisans lining the canals, selling handmade jewelry. You can see locals painting the canals on days when the weather's good. And some of the shops also will sell souvenirs themed around famous European paintings that are in the Ohara Art Museum, or they'll sell locally produced items like denim and indigo dyed goods. I also often recommend doing a workshop here, like sweets making, candle designing, and there are a lot of really small niche museums like the Music Box Museum, really, really cute, as well as the Momotaro Karakuri Museum. Now, if you're willing to go a little further out of Okayama proper, you can head to Bizen. So this is the origin of the area's famous Bizen-yaki pottery. So it's famous for that really beautiful kind of auburn brown coloring that you see there, said to be from the iron-rich soil that they use. So the area around Imbe, which is the hometown of Bizen-yaki, features ruins from ancient kilns as far back as the 16th century, and even shrines with a connection to Bizen ware. So you can visit the Bizen Pottery Museum, learn a bit about how it's made, or if you visit in October, there's the Bizen Pottery Festival, so you can pick some up discounted, even talk to some of the artists. And while you're in the area, you can also head to the Bizen Osafune Sword Museum. So not only does this have displays of swords made by master swordsmen, but they hold workshops and seminars quite frequently. So you can actually see the sword making process and talk directly with the craftsmen. All right, so we're going to move past Okayama now and go on a bit of an island hop. So art fans have usually heard of Naoshima. So this is the famous art island, but you may be surprised to know it's not the only one. So I mentioned the Setouchi Triennale, that international festival, which takes place every 3 years, spanning the seasons on a dozen islands in the Inland Sea. And this festival really revitalizes these less visited areas with foot traffic. But even if you don't visit during this event, you'll find that these islands have really incredible works of art. They're a really great art getaway in general. You can check out the exhibits, camp on the beaches, cycle around the islands, really enjoy those natural surroundings. So I will tour you just around a few of the notable islands here. We can't hit up them all. And keep in mind that ferries running between some of them are dependent on the schedules and opening days of the museums on them. So make sure to check the schedules in advance, just so you know that the facilities are running when you go. So the first of these islands is Inujima. So this is a small island with a population of only about 25 households just off the coast of Okayama. So the island got its name, which means dog island, from a large rock off the coast that looks like a sitting dog. And one of the main attractions is an art museum that was built from the remains of a copper refinery. So during the Triennale, this island is really buzzing with visitors. But you can find beautiful exhibitions and art installations all over the island all year round, including its many art houses from the Inujima Art House project. So these are seamlessly incorporated into the townscape in harmony with the residents and the environment. And the island's beaches also attract campers and picnickers. So they have campgrounds where you can rent tents and gear with advance reservation. And when you're camping, you can see whimsical statues all around the island. So Ms. Kaifu mentioned earlier and introduced it, but the current Symbiosis Living Island exhibition at Japan House sort of takes visitors on a journey around this island with an immersive diorama, documentary videos, testimonies from residents. So if you'd like to learn more, I highly recommend giving a visit. So moving on from Inujima, we head to Teshima. So this is another very small island. The population is only about 1,000 people. And you can get here directly from Inujima Port, or if you headed back to Okayama for the night, you can also get a ferry from there, from Uno Port as well. So despite the island being small, you'll find that the exhibitions are quite spaced out. So you will want to either get a bus around or rent an electric bicycle from the port to tour the island. So it's home to Teshima Art Museum. So this is located in a terraced rice field, and it's one of the major draws here, but you can also encounter some other really beautiful installations around the island as well. So you can typically see much of what Teshima has to offer in a few hours. So a lot of people will pair this with a visit to either Inujima or Naoshima for the day's activities. There's some really great dining options here, like Shima Kitchen, which makes dishes using local ingredients. And while accommodations are sort of slim pickings here, it is possible to stay overnight, or you can always head back to Uno Port at the end of the day. And then finally, we have Naoshima. So this is probably the island that many people have heard of. So it once flourished as a smelter town, but today it's considered an international center for contemporary art. So most people recognize that iconic Yayoi-sama pumpkin over there, but you can find contemporary art, paintings, and architecture with works by famous artists like Claude Monet, James Turrell, and Tadao Ando. So you can get here from Teshima, or you can go from Uno Port. So we would definitely recommend committing at least a day to explore all of Naoshima to see all the different installations and exhibits. And like with Teshima, you can ride buses. You can also rent an electric bicycle to get around. And it is possible to stay overnight on this island. There are a number of accommodations. Even the Benesse House Museum now has an overnight option, but it is a very popular destination. So you'll definitely want to check out accommodation availability pretty far in advance. They do tend to book out. Okay, so that's it for the island hopping. And next up is Kagawa Prefecture. So you can get here from Naoshima directly by taking a ferry to Takamatsu Port. And given its proximity to Naoshima, this area is also considered a center for contemporary art, and there is so much to do and see here. So Takamatsu is the largest city in Shikoku, and a lot of people will use it as a sort of base of operations to explore some of those outer islands in the Seto Inland Sea. So it's got a bustling port, a domestic airport, as well as lots of local crafts and access to some really great nature. So I always recommend if you're visiting, you should definitely try the local specialty food, Sanuki Udon. And one really great activity that's also fun with family is an udon making class. So a local will teach you how to make them, and then you get to sit down and cook them and dine on them in a nice big hot pot afterwards. And it's also home to Ritsurin Koen Park. This is one of Japan's most beautiful gardens. It's especially popular in the spring and autumn. But if you're more interested in old traditional architecture, you can take an hour out to Marugame to see the castle, as well as some of the temples on the Shikoku 88 Temple pilgrimage. I often recommend people visit Kotohiragu Shrine. This is also an hour out, and it's arguably the most famous shrine in the prefecture. And getting there is kind of half the fun. So you have to climb almost 800 steps to get to the main hall and almost 1,400 steps to pray at the inner shrine. So you definitely want to wear some comfortable shoes when you go there. But the area around the shrine also has cafes, tea houses, souvenir shops, some really great restaurants. So it's a really great area to spend an afternoon strolling around. Now, if you want to get some more nature and you're willing to hop on another ferry, you can head to Shodoshima. So this is another one of those islands that takes part in the Triennale, and it's famous for its artwork, romantic scenery, and olive groves. So you can see it almost looks like it's been plucked right out of the Mediterranean with that Greek windmill, and it overlooks the sea with about 2,000 olive trees in the vicinity. So there's also a film set here that was used in the Hayao Miyazaki movie, Kiki's Delivery Service. So you can actually borrow a magical broom on site to pose with, really fun for fans of the movie for some photo shoots. While on the island, you can see some other gorgeous nature like Kankake Gorge. So you can ride a ropeway up here for some really great forest views, especially in the autumn, and try some of their maple leaf cider at the summit. Or if you want more of a beach vibe, you can head to Angel Road, which you can see on the right. So this is actually a sandbar that connects Shodoshima with 3 other small islands, and it's only walkable twice a day when the tide recedes. So according to legend, if you cross it while holding hands with your sweetheart, an angel will come down and grant your wishes, and then you can climb the stone steps from the beach to the Hill of Promises and ring the bell of love. Very romantic. Now, for photographers willing to go a little bit further out, so this is about an hour and a half from Takamatsu, there's Chichibugahama Beach in Myoto City. So this is a 1-kilometer stretch of beach that many people will liken to the Uyuni salt flats in Bolivia for obvious reasons. It's colloquially called the mirror of the heavens. So the tide pools here become mirrors of the sky during low tide, and it's said to be especially beautiful on clear evenings where you can really see the sunset reflected there. So you can check out the ideal times on the Myoto Tourism and Exchange Authority site for the sunset, but generally it's recommended you arrive around an hour before sunset. So local volunteers who keep the beach tidy can help you take photos. You can find beachside cafes and coffee stands here. So this is just a really nice excursion for photo shoots, whether professionally or just for fun with friends and family. And then finally, our last stop, we're moving on to Tokyo. So Takamatsu has a domestic airport that can get you here in a little over an hour, or you can take the Sunrise Seto night train for an overnight journey. So most people can't imagine going to Japan without including a stop here. And it is considered the center of pop culture, tech, fashion. It's got a vibrant nightlife, and the Tokyo Metro makes it really easy to plan a day out seeing all of those major sites. So if you want to get lost in the city, you do have quite a few options depending on your interest, and a lot of shopping options as well if you're still looking to grab some last minute souvenirs before you head home. So for brand goods, you can visit areas like Ginza and Nihonbashi. For anime and games, you can explore Akihabara. For street fashion, you can go to Harajuku. Cooking enthusiasts can browse the wares at Kappabashi and the Tsukiji fish markets. And you'll find there are a lot of really great historical shops located even in the heart of Tokyo. So it is possible to get some of those more traditional souvenirs as well. Now, if you want to appreciate some architecture, you can go to the Imperial Palace grounds or visit the Tokyo Sky Tree for a really nice panoramic view of the city. And despite feeling very modern, you can find a lot of temples and shrines in Tokyo as well, like Sensoji Temple and Meiji Jingu Shrine. If you want to visit some museums, the Edo Tokyo Museum is a great place. Or if you want more of that aesthetic experience, you can visit Team Lab Planets, which has been extended through 2023, or Team Lab Borderless, which is being moved and reopening within 2023. Now, if there are any traditional activities you didn't get to experience in Kyoto or any of the other areas, chances are you can find a venue for it somewhere in Tokyo too, whether that's ikebana flower arranging, learning calligraphy, making ceramics, folding origami. You can even enroll in a sushi cooking class or enjoy a sake tasting. And not many people know this, but Tokyo is also one of the old geisha districts in Japan, so you can even join a geisha performance here as well. And then if you want to see some nature, you'll find a lot of really beautiful parks and like pockets of greenery, I'd say, throughout the city. A lot of really great gardens, seasonal blooms. But if you're willing to go to the outskirts of the greater Tokyo area, you can enjoy some other outdoor activities like hiking, cycling, rafting, even diving, and more. So this route can again be sort of tweaked, done in as little as a week or lengthened to 2 weeks. It really is dependent on you and what you're interested in. So you can always extend your time in some of these areas, shorten your time in others, whatever your interest may be. So you do get that flexibility of having the best of both worlds, those metropolises, as well as those charming coastal cities and towns of Setouchi. So obviously I sped through a lot of these destinations to give you a general overview, but if you'd like to learn more about any of these places or other regions in Japan, you can find information on our website, which is japan.travel. So we do have General Japan 101 for first-timers who kind of need some help preparing for their journey, as well as detailed information about prefectures and cities. So it's definitely worth clicking around and exploring. But if you have any questions for us, you can, of course, contact one of our domestic branches. So I'm part of the Los Angeles office, but we do have another office in New York as well. And I think that's it from me. So thank you guys so much for listening. Hopefully this was informative. We hope it's inspired you for your travels, and we hope to see you in Japan. So I'll hand it back over to Ms. Kaifu. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Rose, so much for a very informative presentation, and so certainly so enticing to go to Japan. I've got to check it out for myself the next time that I go there, although I'm not really sure if I can take 7 days off, but it's really fascinating. Thank you. So now I'd like to take some questions from the audience, but starting with a question, because we are doing this in relation to the Symbiosis exhibition largely. Let me start the question with Setouchi. So as you explained, there are Naoshima, Teshima, and Inujima. And people who are art lovers tend to go there with a great excitement. Why do you think it is that the Setouchi is a center of Japanese art?
That's a good question. So I wouldn't say there's one particular reason. It's more like a collection of reasons. So one of them, the story goes that sort of Naoshima, because it was this old smelter town and island and fishing island, Like a lot of the islands in the area, over time it did become depopulated. But artists eventually sort of moved in, started making art that incorporated a lot of natural materials that were already on the island. So really echoes that symbiosis theme that we can see even today. And also, of course, Benesse has invested really significantly in the area, promoting these incredible islands. So as their projects expanded, I really think the art scene has expanded along with it. So I think those have really contributed to Setouchi being kind of known now as sort of this art center in Japan.
Thank you. And that's a work in progress because Fukutake Foundation and Benesse are contributing to the redevelopment of the area. And it becomes even more fascinating to visit there.
Absolutely.
Right. So next question is this about the weather. To enjoy the warm weather, but avoiding the rainy season, what months would be the best season to visit the Setouchi region?
It's a good question. So, I mean, I lived there all year round for 5 years, and I would say compared to the rest of Japan, we did see less rain, honestly, than everywhere else. So rainy season in Japan tends to be around June. So that's usually the month if you want to avoid rain, you might want to be careful there. I would say springtime, especially late spring, is really good. So right before the rainy season. So things have really warmed up, really great time for being in the outdoors. That said, I'm also very biased. I love autumn in Japan, and nature in Japan in autumn is just really breathtaking. Those beautiful countryside hikes that you can do to enjoy the great outdoors. So I would say also, yeah, November is a pretty good time. October, November, this is when it's sort of cooled down from the peak of summer. So you do really get to enjoy those outdoor sort of coastal areas. But there's no wrong time to go to Japan, I'd say.
That's a great answer. Thank you. But you recommend that people would take their umbrellas with them?
Definitely. I mean, if you're worried about packing it, you can find umbrellas all over. Right before rainy season, Japan really prepares well. Like you can find the convenience stores stocking up. Department stores will have a lot of really great, the retractable umbrellas as well as larger ones. So if you're worried about packing them, you can pick one up in Japan as well, for sure.
And they're not pricey at all.
No, not at all. Very, very affordable. Unless you want a very cute design, then it's a little more expensive, but yeah, they're very affordable.
Right. Thank you. So you talked a little bit about other cities in the region. This person wants to know accommodation in Kurashiki. Where do you recommend to stay in Kurashiki? Are there specifically certain hotels or general recommendation that you might have?
That's a good question. I would have to look into it because since I was in such close proximity to Kurashiki, I never had to stay. I could just easily get the train to and from the city where I lived. But definitely, I've had friends who have stayed at the traditional inns, the ryokans in the area, and they absolutely loved it. And you can find them even in proximity to that historical quarter that I had photos of. So definitely recommend that. But you can find accommodations as well in Okayama City too, if you want to just have the convenience there and be able to get around easily. Kurashiki is very, very accessible.
One thing that people tend to be worried about when traveling to Japan is the language, particularly when you go outside of Tokyo or some of the other metropolitan cities. People may not be able to speak English as well as some others do. So, but then do you think that you'd be okay, even if you don't speak a word of Japanese, you can survive and still enjoy your trip?
You will be absolutely fine. So all of the major train station and major stops will have English. So the transportation is absolutely fine. You'll have no problem with that. Also, you'll find that leading up to the Tokyo Olympics, Japan really ramped up with its English support, trying to add more guided maps and things like that. But at the same time, you'll find, at least this is what I learned in 10 years living there, is even if you don't speak the same language, there are ways to communicate. You know, when I was teaching students as well, a lot of them didn't speak a word of English, but we still managed to get through to each other. You'll find that if you ask someone for directions in these areas, they will do their best to explain, even in limited English. They'll use Google Translate. They might even, you know, grab you and take you to the place that you want to go, sort of thing. Everyone is honestly really friendly and accommodating by and large. So you won't have any problem doing that. I've had solo traveler friends who have gone through these more rural areas and they've had an absolutely fabulous time.
Right. They often use hand gestures to make themselves understood, and they're generally speaking very friendly.
Yes, and they're also very grateful if you speak any Japanese back to them, even if it's something as simple as a greeting. They'll light up. They're so happy to see you putting out that effort as well. So there will always be ways to communicate. Absolutely no reason to worry.
Thank you. The next person would like to learn about hot springs. Are there areas with hot springs in the region, and what hot springs do you recommend if there's any?
Yeah, I mean, you can find hot springs. I mean, there are hot springs all over Japan. The ones that I've been to in Okayama were in more rural areas, like up north in Nimi, a bit out of the way. One of the more famous hot springs, so it's not in the itinerary that I said, but it's in Shikoku, which is connected with the inland sea, is in Ehime. It has Dogo Onsen, which is one of the oldest hot springs in Japan. It's over 1,000 years old. It's said to be also the inspiration behind the bathhouse in Spirited Away. So a lot of people go there just for that, but it's just a really great place to soak in those waters. And it's right in Matsuyama City as well, which is famous for its citrus. So you can have some citrus liqueur to cool down after, have some local drinks. So if you're going to be in that region, definitely recommend hitting that area up.
Yeah, Dogo Onsen Hot Spring is somewhere that I miss a lot. And this is must go if you are in the area.
Absolutely. It's beautiful in the area. And you also get access as well to, Matsuyama Castle, and there's all these gardens and temples in the area to enjoy as well. So you can pair that hot spring visit with that. It's a really relaxing destination.
Right. Let me ask you a few questions about food. So you were there in Okayama for 5 years, and you must have tried many different cuisines. Is there anything that you can recommend or you miss a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Okayama in particular is famous for quite a few different dishes. Probably their most famous thing is their fruit, just because of the warm weather. So the grapes, the white peaches there are the sweetest, most delicious fruits that I've ever had in my life. Every summer I made sure to pick some up for friends. And when I lived in Tokyo, I would pick them up from Okayama on visits to bring back to Tokyo for people to enjoy. But I also really enjoyed the seafood in the area. I mean, because you have access to the coast there, there was a really lovely fish market that I would go to where I would get fresh kaisendon. So those are those seafood bowls with all this fresh fish piled on top. And for like a fraction of the price that you'd find in the States, it's like something that would cost at least $50 here would be like $20 in Okayama. So that's definitely really, really great. A lot of great seasonal parfaits, a lot of sweets in the area, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mouth-watering, which is you've just said. Some people don't eat meat or fish. So this person wants to know if you can share restaurants or dishes to recommend for vegetarians along this itinerary.
There are definitely a lot of options for vegetarians as well. I mean, I have friends when I was living in Japan who were vegetarians who didn't have a problem going around. You just have to be a little bit flexible. Some restaurants may not understand vegetarianism. So I often recommend people carry around like a sheet that says, these are the things I can't eat. And it actually checks off like, meat, fish, gelatin specifically, because not everyone knows that gelatin is a meat-based product, dashi, like katsuo dashi, which is made from fish flakes. So if you have that prepared, you can show it to them. And often it'll have both English and Japanese. So you don't even have to try to explain, just show them and they'll be able to hopefully accommodate you. A lot of places will try to be flexible to your needs as well. And these are also good tips if you have any food allergies, if you have a gluten allergy. Those sheets are really helpful to carry around as well.
That's true. So this person loves oysters. Are there any areas that are famous for local oysters? I know that Hiroshima is famous.
Yeah, Absolutely. No, that's what I was going to say. So Hiroshima is actually, it was a thing that immediately popped into my head. So that is part of Setouchi. So if you want oysters, absolutely head to Hiroshima. They have like these massive, really incredible oysters that are famous countrywide. It's not exactly oysters, but one of the things in Okayama that's famous, I'm trying to think, it's like it uses oysters in a dish. No, I'm blanking on the name of the food, but it's kind of like yakisoba style dish with oysters in it. So if you Google, Okayama oyster dish, it'll pop up for sure. It's one of the regional foods.
So many people probably are planning for the summer, the destination being Japan, family trips and things. But where do you recommend to go with, particularly the family with children under 6 years old?
So another thing you can do with this route, if you want to tweak the route a little bit, so Kyoto and Osaka are in really close proximity to one another, like half an hour away. I often recommend Osaka to people as a really family-friendly destination. They've got the Osaka Aquarium, which is really gorgeous, really great to bring the family. They've got Universal Studios Japan. Osaka Castle's right in the city center, so it's really easily accessible via the trains. You don't have to walk around a bunch if the kids get tired. But yeah, areas like that are great. Even in the Setouchi area, it sort of depends on what your interest is. I mean, here we focused a lot on art and nature, but if you go to places like Kagawa, they've got a lot of really fun activities for the family, like sitting down, making your own udon noodles. There's a really cute class there where everyone gets together and dances on the udon noodles, and kids have a blast doing that. There really is just something for the family anywhere you go. You just kind of have to look, but I would definitely recommend, if you want that, with this itinerary, tweaking it to include Osaka.
I agree. Osaka is somewhat more relaxed and people are friendly. And this is that we all love children, but the children would feel comfortable walking on the streets of Osaka.
Right. Absolutely.
To eat, particularly dining experience in Osaka is considered to be very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great place for restaurant hopping. And I mean, the kids are bound to find something that they like. There are over 1,000 restaurants in the Dotonbori area, so guaranteed that there will be something for everyone there.
Thank you. So it could be the last question, but of course, when we go out to the country area, people do worry about transportation. So this person wants to know if cabs or Uber type services are available in the less urban areas like Tokyo.
Yeah, so you can find cabs pretty consistently all over Japan. Uber hasn't really taken off so much in Japan, so definitely cabs and arranging for private transportation is a great option. But you will find that the trains are pretty extensive. The train network, even for this itinerary, you would be taking the Shinkansen bullet train for the vast majority of it to get around. So there is a lot of accessibility. I wouldn't worry too much about it in the rural areas. If you want to go obviously way deep into the countryside somewhere, then you might have to, again, arrange for a taxi or a private car or something.
But it's getting there. I guess the Japanese transportation system is much more welcoming to overseas travelers. So.
Oh, absolutely. It's the thing that I miss the most about Japan is the access to some really incredible public transportation. You can find, even if there aren't trains, there might be buses that run. There are a lot of options for sure.
Thank you. I'm afraid that it's all the time that we have. I'm sorry that we couldn't cover all the questions, but well, thank you so much, Rose. On behalf of all the viewers, thank you for your excellent presentation and answers to their questions. And also like to thank the NTO LA office for their great support. And thank you, our viewers, for your great attention and questions. I'm sorry again that we could not cover all the questions, but I hope that you'll be more ready to go to Japan either this summer or throughout the year.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.